Subscribe Founders in 3D. Hello, welcome to this week's Facebook Live Hit Subscribe edition. We're gonna talk about blogs. We're gonna talk about how blogs grow organically and build authority. We always talk about blogs. That's why that's funny. If you didn't know. All right. So you're gonna be the star of this show as usual.
Put this in
as the
oh, that
expert.
didn't work. I'm going to try and put it in Do Not Disturb, because what I realize is the viewer experience, when we see that come up, like the viewers hear like it's just there.
Amazing.
I always forget to put it in Do Not Disturb. Sorry about that. So how do blogs grow organically and build authority? I realize this is like a subject we've never necessarily talked about. Like we've talked about a lot of the mechanics of like how to blog and how to do keyword research and how to bring people in from Google and all that. But the subject of like if you were to start your blog about whatever it is you people do,
amazing.
You might not have a lot of line of sight of like how does this just go from you screaming into the void to like people following you and having traffic. That was like something I honestly didn't know. So I started blogging 2010, like whenever I finished grad school, and for a long time, it was just kind of amusing to me. Like, I would put stuff out on the internet and there it was. And I think it was like a year before it even occurred to me to wonder if anyone was reading. I mean, like not that long, but like probably close to it. Because I remember getting really excited the first time that like I got spam comments like, hey, look, if I just like delete the spammy backlink here, it looks like somebody, cared.
Oh, that's cute.
So anyway, it might not be obvious to you how you're going to wind up getting traffic and growing traffic. There are a few ways that happens. The way that hit subscribe gains traffic now, and actually the toy website I've talked about here, and maybe we can throw a link in the comments or something later, but this website we built, like we've run an experiment in like how to actually get search engine traffic, like pure search engine traffic, which is called organic. So that's one strategy. You can basically build a website and just write blog posts that are like specifically designed to answer the kind of questions that people ask on Google. And that brings in this organic traffic, search engine traffic. That's a strategy. Another completely different strategy, like the one my first blog followed, was you kind of, you write the content and then maybe you share it on social media with your probably tiny network when you're starting out. And you hope that people pick it up. I remember like finding other kind of newbie bloggers and like I would comment on them and they'd comment on me and there was kind of some traction you build that way. But like that's a kind of a tougher road and it requires like pretty regular content. Like you have to almost treat your blog like a newspaper or something, a publication, where you're producing regular content that encourages people to come and bookmark your site, check back regularly and all that. And what will happen is it takes a while to build up any kind of following, but once that starts, it'll sort of take off. You'll get people commenting, you'll get more of a following on social media. I mean, we're talking probably years for that to happen typically, but it can. You will build a following over the course of time.
So what you're talking about here, if you're not doing any keyword research and you're not specifically like looking up the sort of things that people type into Google and trying to attract those people that type into Google, that like your best bet is to make sure that you're doing things consistently and you're sharing on social media all the time. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you want, I wrote a blog post years ago that said like your content is like a contract with your readers. So if you're trying to build a following, you want that whenever a reader comes to your site, like once a week or once a month, that person can count like clockwork, that there will always be new content. Because if you do what like most people watching this will do, if you try to start a blog, you're going to write like 8 posts while you're excited, and then you're going to give up, and then you're going to write a post 6 months later, dust off the old blog, like, hey, this should be a thing that I do. You're going to write like 2 posts in a week and then forget about it for 3 years. So if that's this like blogging anti-pattern that like it, I know it, everybody. So if you see a site with like that posting pattern, you're like, oh, why would I ever come back here? Like clearly this person's not really going to blog.
Yeah.
Versus if you go and you see in their like side gutter or whatever, the archived posts, and you see that for the last 8 years they've published 3 posts a month or whatever, you're going to come back like that. You can count on. So that's kind of the building a following route. In 2019, going on 2020 at the time of recording, um, that's like a little. There may be better avenues for that than blogging. Like blogging was a great way when I was doing it back in like 2010.
Yeah.
That was kind of like your prime way of doing it. Things like YouTube and Instagram were I mean, YouTube was around. Was Instagram even around?
I don't know. Babies.
Anyway, if they were around, they were a lot younger, a lot fewer content creators. Blogging is, a print medium isn't the most engaging thing compared to like pictures, videos. So typically these days, if you really want to build a following of you as a person, video might be a better way. Video and picture might be a better way to do that faster. The danger there is if you're building through those platforms and not your website, they change an algorithm and everything goes away and your whole empire crumbles. So
what about podcasts? I'm not creating a podcast.
It's a good one too for building a following, I would say.
You could publish that on your own platform, right? Like a platform that
You can
own.
publish anything on your own platform, and you can publish video on your site and all that. So, I mean, there are ways to do it. I guess I'm just saying that, like, historically, the readership growth thing used to be easier comparatively with blogs 10 years ago. Getting in now, it's a little tougher because there's just a billion bloggers out there now, and you've got these other sort of like more instant feedback formats too. Like it's fragmented. So building an audience is really about engagement and about them getting to know you. If like your goal is to build a cadre of people that follow you. And the interesting thing is with like organic, if you're just building for search engines, it's like the complete opposite. Like you're kind of banking on people hitting your site for like a specific article, and like maybe they bookmark it and maybe they like it, but it's really much more transactional. You're just assuming that like 1,000 new people a day or whatever are going to find various articles that you've written through Google and read them and maybe like sign up for your newsletter. So it's a much different strategy, which is kind of interesting when you talk about like the mechanisms for growing a blog, how you can have this kind of like opposite end of the spectrum approach. There's nothing to say you can't do both. Like Dead Tech, my blog has, I don't know, 5,000 followers, something like that, but it also does, oh goodness, maybe 25, 30,000 visitors a month organically, so it brings in both. I'm trying to think if there's other, like, so the core of this is that you've got, you have to, if you want to build an audience, build authority, build readership, get people on your site, you have to have like some sort of game plan for getting eyeballs to your site. When you start a blog and you start writing, unless you're purely just online journaling and you don't care if anyone ever shows up, you have to have some plan. Like, are you going to share it on social media? Are you going to like email your whole family and be like, hey, share this with your family, or friends and so you can try for like things like that. You could like honestly go into like Google and do like paid search to get people to your blog, something or another. You have to like devise of a way to get people there, and then the idea is that those people will like the content and hopefully keep coming back, and what you're building there is your audience.
How do you like balance the advice of like, just write, just get something out there. That's what you need to do. Just if you need to blog, just write. Don't agonize over things. And then like this advice to like, you should have a plan. Who are you going to share it with? Get your spreadsheet out. Like, where's the balance of that? Like, you don't want to cripple yourself with.
Here's like a metaphor you're going to like.
Okay.
It's like maybe, it's New Year's, which is coming up, and you're going to do that thing where you're like, this is going to be the year I'm going to go to the gym. What advice do you give people who are going to the gym? Go to the gym. So like first and foremost, don't worry about like your lifting technique or what cardio machine or whatever. Just get in the habit of going to the gym. It would be better if you had like a good game plan when you were there, weight loss goals or lifting goals or whatever. Sure, that would be great. And it's eventually going to be necessary for you to get results. But the hard thing is just to get that muscle memory of showing up every day when it's cold out and you don't want to do it and it's early. So worry about showing up first. Worry about producing the content first. Because the way that most blogs fail, like, people in all of my social networks over the years, I always take an interest when any of you watching out there blog because it's what we've done for a long time. And what everybody does is the 6 blog posts in 3 weeks and then never again. That's the lack of muscle memory. Like, you've got to get in the habit. You've got to sign up and say, I'm going to write all this content. And if I get ahead some weeks, great. If I don't do it some weeks, whatever. But like, we need to be going weekly, and I'm gonna make it my goal to produce a piece of content at least once a week for 6 months. Once you've got that and you're in a groove, then you can start to think about like, all right, what do people do? Like, what's a best practice? Where do I share this? Where do I whatever? But get used to writing the content first.
I really like that. That's a great analogy. I'm into it. Right.
Yeah, creating the content is the hardest thing. You will get better at it, like almost without exception. When you start your blog post, I mean, it's like anything else; it's going to be garbage. But like, you'll get better at it. I mean, like, if I look back at the first blog post I wrote, there were like these giant walls of meandering text where I thought I was clever. I mean, but like over the course of time, you'll improve. So don't worry about like the quality and stuff. Just do it, put it out there. You'll figure out the rest, how to install Google Analytics or how to like do social share or whatever.
So what the other part of this question is build authority. What would you say to either a person or a brand or like, a company or whatever to say that like I want to use the blog to build authority? What's your response to that?
I mean, if I'm being honest, there's kind of like I don't know, a cognitive bias or something. Like, the way to build authority is to start a blog. I'm not kidding. When people see stuff that you've written in print, they're like, "Oh, that's obviously an expert." Like, like, I'm serious.
That's so true.
The way that you build authority. I mean, like, that's a little cynical. Like, you could write utter nonsense or have like a really spammy blog that was. I mean, like, people don't look at just anything on the internet and think like, "Oh, this person clearly knows what they're talking about." But you would be shocked as to how quickly somebody will consider you an authority on a topic if all you do is show up every week and write about it. And not even as an expert. If you just like write a bunch of posts, like if I decided that I really wanted to be an expert in crockpot cooking, I'm not. I mean, like, I know my way around a crockpot, but like, you're not going to confuse me with Martha Stewart or whatever. But if I just wrote about it every week for a year, you wouldn't believe how many people would start coming to me as if I were an expert in that. Not writing about it for a year, you'll get better at it.
Yeah.
But like, my point is, the authority kind of comes with the medium and the consistency of speaking about it. And I want to put that out there because a lot of people view that as a barrier. Like, oh, I can't really weigh in on this topic unless I'm an expert, especially in tech. When we reach out to people about, hey, do you want to write for our company? It's a very common response to be like, well, I'm not the world's foremost expert in JavaScript, so I don't think I could write a blog about it. No, it doesn't work that way.
This reminds me very much of a conversation I had with a professor when he said, like, I started for, my research, really studying a poet and really getting to know his poems and like, trying to publish a lot of things, and I was like learning about these poems, and all of a sudden, like, outside sources were calling me like the expert on this poem or on this poet, and like, he was kind of looking around being like, I mean, I read a few of them, I've been writing about them a bunch, but like, I kept reading and I kept talking to other people who knew a lot about this poet, and like, eventually after doing it, but like, you had a lot of imposter syndrome, or like maybe accurate I'm not an expert syndrome while he was being called this expert. And then all of a sudden, after doing enough writing about this poet, he was looking for people to talk to about the poet, and he realized that, just kind of standing alone on the platform and no one was around him, and he was the like foremost leading expert in this poet. It just took a reading and writing about it.
He ran through the finish line tape and looked around and realized he was first.
I like that.
So I guess, I mean, how do blogs grow organically and build authority? If I were going to summarize it, I would say the main way that happens is with consistency. Like, you've just got to keep showing up. You will naturally get better. You will naturally develop audience building strategies. It will also naturally be really discouraging at first, because if you start a blog, like, your mother and some weirdo that comments on every post you make initially will be the only 2 people in the world reading it. I'm sorry, stuff like that happens. Like, you'll get like an early, like, really big fan or something. There are weird things that happen, but once you kind of are at it for a while, you'll build momentum. It's really slow, maddeningly slow at first. And that's kind of the reason it's a barrier to entry. There's a reason that most people don't have thousands and thousands of followers.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of effort and like sticking with it. But the biggest way that blogs grow, I mean, whether it's organic search traffic, whether it's a following, is consistency of content, kind of having a general theme and message that you stick with, because you want to become a source to people of knowledge, entertainment, just interesting opinions about a subject. And when you do that, like sooner or later, the people will start showing up, and you'd be surprised how kind of hockey stick like that graph will be of people, because once enough eyeballs are on it, people start to share it, and you can, depend on other sources of bringing stuff to your blog other than your own efforts. So if you have thousands of followers and you write posts, somebody's going to like it, somebody's going to share it, it's going to go viral somewhere. So yeah, I guess consistency, and maybe just consistency is the big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, don't get me
Sounds so
wrong,
easy.
there's things you can do to like accelerate that curve or whatever. Like there's tactics that are important, but without the consistency and the messaging, kind of the rest doesn't matter.
Huh. Well, all right.
All right.
I'm going to go back to writing for good old in Litero. I have a literary blog that I've abandoned after like 3 years.
Yeah, dig that back up and keep trucking. Yeah, that's it. I think we'll be around next week. It is a weekday. That's not a holiday.
We'll have super festive content for you next week.
Oh yeah, we should do something like that.
Yeah, we should talk about our. I don't know. I was gonna say our favorite Christmas cookies, but like I'm trying to be sugar free, and I don't know what your feelings on Christmas cookies are, but I don't want to eat them this year, so it'll just be depressing.
Join us next week when the topic will be, how early on Christmas morning is it okay to start drinking schnapps?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Mic drop.
We will catch you next time.
Bye.